Okay, so today we're going to look at simplifying expressions. Okay, and so what is it to simplify expressions? Well, the first thing that we want to do is to make sure that we're able to add and subtract, well, algebraic terms. We already know what they are. They could be things like our x's or a's, any kind of variable, anytime we use a letter to represent something that we don't know. So exactly like we've been doing with our superhero substitution. The other thing that we're going to hopefully look at today is multiplying algebraic terms. Okay, it's also very simple. Okay, so we have two very important basic rules when it comes to simplifying algebraic expressions. The first thing is we can only add or subtract terms that have the same letter or the same letters raised to the same power, and these are called like terms. So we have the phrase like terms together. So that's one of our most important phrases when it comes to algebra. And that means if I have x plus y, and I want to tidy that up, well, I can only put the things that are the same. So this has the same letter and the same letter. So if I have two of these x's, that means I have 2x plus 1y. And that's it tidied up. Okay? The other very important rule is, you'll note up here when I added these two x's together, the power on the x didn't change. It still remained as an x, but I just have two of them, so I have 2x. So when we're adding or subtracting terms, the powers of the variable don't change. They'd only change if we were multiplying or dividing. Okay? The important thing here as well, you can pause the video now and take down both of those rules and the examples and this phrase as well, that like terms together. So all of this is to be copied into your maths copy. Okay, so we're going to look at these three examples together. So the first one, we have x plus x plus x. Well, very simply, how many x's do I have? I have 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So my answer there is just very simply, I have 3x. I'm just tidying it up. My next example, I have 2y minus 4y plus 3y. Okay? And so I'm going to read from left to right. So here I have 2y and I take away 4y from that, which means I'm down to minus 2y. The other rule that we could use there that we've used before is different signs subtract. So 4 take away 2, well, that leaves me with 2, or 2y. And this time, and I keep the sign of the bigger number, which was the minus 4. So now I have minus 2y plus 3y. Well, here again, different signs subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So 3y take away 2y. Well, that leaves me with y, or 1y, which is the same thing. I might write the 1y here. And I keep the sign of the bigger number, which is positive. So plus 1y is just the same as y. Okay, and so lastly here now with our last example, well, I've 2a squared plus 3a squared. So how many a squared do I have? Well, 2a squared plus 3a squared, that gives me 5a squared. Just taking that first two terms together, just this bit here. So what am I left with? I'm left with my minus 6a squared to take away. So 5a squared take away 6a squared. Well, using my number line, I could say that brings me to minus 1a squared. Or my other rule again, different signs subtract. 6a squared take away 5a squared leaves me with 1a squared, or a squared, and I keep the sign of the bigger number, which is a minus this time, and that's my answer. Minus a squared. Okay, so as a learning check now, I want you to try and group, to have taken down those last examples. So pause the video, take down those last three examples, and then pause the video again and try and take down, try and complete these questions yourself before watching the video to see the solution. Okay, so now that we're ready to go, we can see here in this question, well, we're asked 4x minus 2y plus 3x minus 5y plus 3. So what's the first thing? Again, I'm just going to underline in blue the like terms. So these are the ones that have x's only. Okay, so they're what I'm going to group together first. So I'm going to have 4x plus 3x. My next term here, then I have minus 2y minus 5y. So they're again both y terms. So they're the ones I'm going to have. And then the only thing that I have left without any underline is just that number on its own. So I bring it down. So now I look and I see, well, how many x's do I have? If I had 4 x's first and then I add on 3, well, that means I have 7 x's or 7x. Here, what's my rule for over here? Minus 2y take away 5y. Well, I know that's the same sign, so I add them. So 2 and 5, well, that gives me 7. So it's 2y and 5y is 7y. And I keep the sign, isn't that right? Same signs add and keep the sign. So it's minus 7y. And then, again, the plus 3 just comes down. Now, because none of those have any other letter in common, there I'm finished. So I just put a red box around it at the end. Here I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to underline the things that have the same letter to the same power. So here I have an a squared, and here I have a squared. So they're the first ones that I'm going to deal with. So here I rewrite 5a squared minus 3a squared. Notice how the sign travels with that. So the minus belongs to the 3a squared and it travels with it. The next ones then that I'm going to look at, well, here I have a's and here I just have a's. Okay? Now, very important to note, I couldn't have put those a's with those a squared. Why? Because the power was different. But here I can write down my minus 2a plus 4a. And then lastly, I have just my numbers on their own, the two things left without anything underlined. So minus 7 plus 3. And so I'm back to my important rules, my DSS rule and my SSA rule. Different signs subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number, and same signs add and keep the sign. If we've forgotten those, let's write down those rules into our copy again. So here, well, 5a squared take away 3a squared, different signs, so I'm subtracting them. 5a squared take away 3a squared, well, that leaves me with 2a squared, and it's positive because 5 was positive. Here I have minus 2a plus 4a. Well, again, different signs subtract, so 4 take away 2, that leaves me with 2a, and I keep the sign of the bigger number. So 4 was the bigger number, it's positive, so I keep the positive sign. And lastly then, here I have minus 7 plus 3. So again, different signs subtract. 7 take away 3 is 4. And which was the bigger number? 7 was, and it had a minus sign, so that's what I keep. So I'm finished there. So all I can do now is just put a red box around it to tidy it up. And we'll have a quick look then at the last question. So here in the last example, the last question, what do I have? I have 2x cubed y squared minus 3x squared y cubed minus 4x cubed y squared. Now that all looks a little bit complicated, but what have I to look for? To see, do each of those letters have the same powers? Because only then can I group them together. And are they both? So every term, each of the three terms, has an x and y, an x and y. But the powers might be a little bit different. So let me just check. Here I have x cubed, here I have only x squared, so I know I'm in trouble. So here I have x cubed, here I have x cubed. So that bit there is correct anyway. And then I'm going to have a look again at the second term in it. So y squared and y squared. So I know I'm actually fine to add those terms together, but I can do nothing with the middle term. So again, I'm just going to rewrite. So that's 2x cubed y squared take away 4x cubed y squared, and then I just have to write down my last one, minus 3x squared y cubed. So tidying that up, well, 2x cubed y squared take away 4x cubed y squared. 2 take away 4, so it's different signs subtract, so 4 take away 2 is 2x cubed y squared, and I keep the sign of the bigger number, which is minus, and then I just write down my minus 3x squared y cubed, and that's it. For the moment I'm done. Later on we'll see how we can factorize those to make it a bit tidier looking again, but for the moment I'm done exactly with there. So in these examples I can see I have lots of things in brackets together. So I suppose I'd always have BIMDAS as important for me to go over here in the same way that you had with substitution. The other thing that's really important as well is if we remember from our prime factorization, just again, powers. So what are the powers of something going to be? So prime factorization. So here, example number 1, well, I have 3x by 2. Okay? Now the important thing, the kind of rule I suppose, or the order, would go number by number by term by term. That's how we would rewrite it. So here, when I'm doing question 1 here, I'd have 3, first of all. Then the next number I have is the 2, and then I have the variable, okay, which is the x. So I would say, well, 3 by 2, that gives me 6 by x is 6x. And that's my answer. Very simple, very straightforward. So again, I'm going to have a look now at number 2. So rewriting our rule again here at the top of the page, and again pause the video and write this into your copies, very important rule. So number by number by letter, so it's just about ordering. So here we're going to have a look together at number 2. So number 2 says 4x in brackets by 3x in brackets. Well, so if I follow my rule here, I know I have 4 and 3, they're numbers. So they're the first things that I'm going to write down. 4 in brackets by 3 in brackets. And then what have I got? Just some letters. X by x. Now I know anything in brackets together like that means multiply. Okay? So when I see brackets like that, brackets mean, or brackets together beside each other, equals multiply. Okay, so the first thing then, well, 4 by 3 I know is 12, and x by x is x to the power of 2, or x squared, and that's our answer, 12x squared. So our final example here, we have 3x times 2xy. So again, I'm going to put my numbers together first, so that's 3 bracket 2, then here I have x's and x's, so I'm going to have x bracket x, and lastly then I have a y left, so I'm going to have bracket y. So I know here then that 3 by 2, well, that gives me 6. X by x gives me x to the power of 2, or x squared, and that's all multiplied by y. So my answer then completely is 6x squared y, and again I'll put a red box around that. Okay, and so for the next bit now, you can look at the activity on Schoology and for the questions for homework as a learning check. Okay?